The severing echo. The outer rim of the Helios cluster sparkled with the residual light of a battle long concluded. Shattered hulls of warships drifted in the void, their navigation lights flickering like dying heartbeats against the canvas of stars. This was the 40th day of the Varnax-Strelic War, a conflict that had consumed 7 star systems and shown no signs of abating. Admiral Krell of the Varnax Armada watched from the command deck of his flagship, the Righteous Fang, as his engineers tallied their latest victory. 6 Drellic cruisers destroyed, 3 more captured, and a strategic outpost secured. The price had been acceptable. 4 of his own ships lost, 2 damaged beyond immediate repair. Another glorious day for the hegemony, announced his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vask. The officer's scaled skin glistened under the bridge lights, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Krell merely grunted. Glory was for propagandists and juveniles. He concerned himself with logistics, with strategy, with the inexorable expansion of Varnax's influence across disputed territories. The Drellics were formidable opponents, 6-limbed methane brothers with remarkable bioengineering capabilities, but ultimately they would fall. All opposition to the hegemony eventually did. Admiral, called the communications officer, unknown signatures detected at the edge of the sector. Krell's attention shifted to the tactical display. 7 small vessels, approaching from the direction of the Sol system. Human transport ships, civilian class, their engines struggling against the gravitational eddies of the nearby nebula. Advise them to alter course, Krell ordered dismissively. This is an active conflict zone. The communications officer transmitted the warning, then frowned. No response, Admiral. They continue on their present trajectory. Krell felt irritation rise within him. Humans, always where they shouldn't be, always believing their neutrality offered protection in spaces where power alone determined survival. The Treaty of Proxima Centauri had established their right to traverse neutral corridors, but this was different. This was war. Final warning, he commanded. Then they proceed at their own risk. Before the message could be sent, the tactical display flared. From the opposite vector, a Drellic battle group had emerged from hyperspace. 3 destroyers and a carrier vessel, no doubt attempting to reclaim their lost outpost. What followed was inevitable. The space between the opposing fleets erupted in weapons fire. Particle beams lanced across the void, torpedoes traced burning paths between vessels, and the fabric of space itself warped under the strain of gravitational weapons. Caught in the crossfire, the human transport convoy stood no chance. The largest ship, identified in passing scans as the Artemis Dawn, broke apart first. Its civilian-grade shields collapsed under a barrage of Drellic plasma torpedoes, its hull splitting like an overripe fruit. The others followed in quick succession, destroyed not by targeted attacks, but by the sheer volume of fire saturating the battlefield. When the sensors cleared, there was nothing left but cooling debris and a fading energy signature that marked where 7 vessels had once been. Collateral damage, Vask noted clinically. Unfortunate. Log it as an operational hazard. Krell nodded. The humans had been warned. Their stubbornness had cost them their lives. The battle continued. 3 days later, on Draxus Prime, the Drellic High Command received the report of the human convoy's destruction with similar detachment. The humans were in violation of safe transit protocols, stated Grand Strategist Selkis, her voice resonating through specialized atmospheric chambers. No deliberate action was taken against their vessels. Her subordinates recorded the official position. The matter was considered closed. But across the vast interstellar communications network, something strange occurred. From Earth, nothing. No diplomatic protests, no demands for investigation, no threats of sanction or retaliation. Only silence, deep and unnerving, spreading across subspace channels like a creeping fog. Analysts and diplomats across a dozen species noted the anomaly. Rumors began to circulate. The humans were preparing something. The humans were afraid. The humans had abandoned their colonies to preserve their homeworld. They are irrelevant, Krell told his officers when questioned. A marginal species with marginal technology. Their silence is acknowledgement of their place in the galactic order. Yet in private, he reviewed what intelligence existed on human military capabilities. Their navy was modest. A defensive force of 20 capital ships, perhaps 200 smaller vessels. Their technology, while respectable, lagged behind both Varnak's and Drellic's standards in weapons, propulsion, and shield generation. They were traders and explorers, not warriors. So why did the silence persist? Why did it feel so deliberate? 17 days after the destruction of the human convoy, the answer arrived. It began with a spatial anomaly above Varnak's prime, the heavily fortified homeworld of the hegemony. Sensors detected a ripple in the fabric of space-time unlike any known jump signature or warp field. The disturbance grew, expanding outward like concentric rings on water, until it stabilized into an aperture of absolute darkness against the stars. From within this darkness emerged the Ravien's KL. The vessel defied conventional classification. It was immense, nearly 4 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a seamless construction of obsidian material that absorbed rather than reflected light. No external weapons were visible, no engine ports, no communication arrays. It simply existed, suspended in space above the most heavily defended planet in the hegemony, a silent monolith of impossible scale. The reaction was immediate. Defense platforms activated automatically, disgorging swarms of interceptors. Orbital batteries swiveled to track the intruder. The home fleet, 27 capital ships strong, moved to establish a containment perimeter. Admiral Krell, recalled from the front lines with emergency priority, arrived on the command deck of the orbital defense station as the first salvo was launched. Unidentified vessel, transmitted the defense coordinator on all frequencies. You have entered sovereign Varnak space without authorization. Power down and prepare for boarding, or you will be fired upon. No response came from the Ravien's KL. No acknowledgement of the threat, no attempt at communication. It hung in space, motionless and indifferent. The first wave of missiles reached the vessel and detonated against an invisible barrier. The explosions seemed to flatten and dissipate, as if their energy had been absorbed into some unseen medium. The second wave, comprised of gravitic warheads designed to bypass conventional shields, simply vanished before impact. Increased power, Krell ordered, a flicker of unease rippling beneath his professional demeanor. All batteries, maximum yield. The orbital defense grid unleashed its full arsenal. Energy weapons, particle beams, kinetic penetrators, a storm of destructive potential sufficient to reduce a small moon to rubble. The space around the Ravien's KL distorted as the barrage connected, light bending around its hull as if drawn into the surface. When the firing ceased and the sensors cleared, the vessel remained unchanged, untouched, unmoved. Impossible, whispered the defense coordinator. Krell felt a cold sensation spread through his body, an ancestral recognition of danger that predated civilization, a primal awareness that they faced something beyond their understanding. Open a direct channel, he commanded. I will speak with whoever commands that ship. The communications officer complied, establishing an open broadcast on all known frequencies. Krell drew himself to his full height, mandibles flared in a posture of authority. This is Admiral Krell of the Varnak's hegemony. You have violated our sovereign territory and ignored lawful commands. Identify yourself immediately. The silence stretched for long moments. Then, without warning, the Ravien's KL began to move. Not with the acceleration of conventional engines, but with a smooth, implacable advance that suggested the very fabric of space was carrying it forward. It passed through the defensive perimeter as if the assembled firepower of the hegemony were nothing more than an inconvenient mist. As it moved, something changed. The vessel's obsidian surface rippled, and a symbol appeared along its flank, a stylized earth surrounded by 7 stars, beneath which were engraved words in the human standard language. Remember the RTMIS dawn. Understanding dawned on Krell with terrible clarity. This was no diplomatic mission, no conventional military response. This was judgment. The Ravens KL continued its silent approach toward Varnax Prime, and for the first time in his long military career, Admiral Krell felt truly afraid. The silent judgment. The Ravens KL descended toward Varnax Prime with the inexorable patience of gravity. No weapons had yet been fired from the human vessel, no ultimatums delivered, no demands made. Its silence spoke louder than any broadcast. In the planetary capital of Scrathfor, panic spread through the upper echelons of hegemony leadership. The High Command convened an emergency session, their normally orderly proceedings dissolving into cacophony as military leaders and politicians alike struggled to comprehend what they faced. "Deploy the planetary defense grid," ordered Supreme Warlord Tazik, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Launch all reserve fleets. Nothing enters our atmosphere without my authorization." Across the surface of Varnax Prime, massive cannons emerged from hidden bunkers. Shield generators powered up, creating a lattice of protective energy that encased the planet. From secret hangars carved into mountain ranges and oceanic trenches, thousands of fighters and hundreds of capital ships rose to join the defense. It was the greatest concentration of Varnax military might ever assembled, enough firepower to subjugate an entire sector. The Ravens KL continued its descent, unhurried and untroubled. When the human vessel reached the upper atmosphere, Supreme Warlord Tazik himself took command of the defense coordination. "All units, fire at will. Destroy that ship." The sky above Scrathfor blazed with weapons discharge. Particle beams capable of vaporizing mountains converged on the Ravens KL. Missiles carrying antimatter warheads detonated in synchronized waves. Gravity weapons attempted to tear the vessel apart at a molecular level. For a brief moment, the human ship vanished within a cocoon of destructive energy so intense that observation systems failed, and the ground itself trembled beneath the onslaught. When the sensors cleared, the Ravens KL remained pristine, undamaged, untouched. Then, for the first time, it responded. No weapon was fired, no explosive force unleashed. Instead, a field of influence extended outward from the vessel like an invisible tide. Where it passed, technology simply stopped. Defense platforms went dark. Shields collapsed. Weapons systems deactivated. Communication grids fell silent. Fighters dropped from the sky, their pilots struggling with suddenly inert controls. Capital ships drifted, powerless. The planetary grid, the pride of Varnax engineering, shut down section by section as the field spread across the surface. In 17 minutes, the combined military might of the Varnax hegemony had been rendered inoperative without a single shot fired. In desperation, Tazik authorized the use of primitive atomic weapons, devices considered obsolete for centuries, but maintained as a final resort. Launched from hardened silos using chemical propellants, these missiles represented technology so basic that it was hoped they might function where advanced systems had failed. They never reached their target. Midway through their trajectory, the warheads simply disintegrated, breaking down into harmless components that scattered in the upper atmosphere. As the Ravens KL settled into a hover above the capital city, a communication was finally received. Not a voice, not a video transmission, but a simple text message displayed on the few functioning screens remaining. "We RECIV your MESSAG. Now UYL RECIV hours." Across the stars, a similar scene unfolded above Drellic Prime. A second human vessel, identical to the first and bearing the same inscription, appeared without warning in orbit around the Drellic homeworld. The same methodical neutralization of defenses followed, the same silent exhibition of technological superiority that defied understanding. In the chambers of the Galactic Concord, representatives from 100 species gathered in emergency session. The Varnax and Drellic ambassadors, bitter enemies until hours ago, now stood side by side, united by shared terror. "The humans have violated all principles of proportional response," argued the Varnax representative. 7 civilian vessels lost in a conflict zone does not justify this invasion. The Drellic ambassador's appendages rippled with agitation. We request immediate intervention by the Concord fleet. This is naked aggression against sovereign worlds. From the human delegation's seat, always before occupied by junior diplomats of modest influence, rose a figure that silenced the chamber by her mere presence. Admiral Eleanor Chen, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, wore a simple black uniform devoid of decoration, save for a single silver pin, 7 stars surrounding Earth. Honored representatives, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber without apparent amplification. Let me correct some misconceptions. This is not an invasion. This is not war. This is education. She activated a holographic display at the center of the chamber. It showed the destruction of the Artemis Dawn and her sister ships from multiple angles, captured in perfect clarity despite the chaos of battle. 7 vessels, 342 civilians, including 87 children. Scientists, educators, and colonists bound for our outpost in the Rigel system. Their course was filed with the Concord. Their neutral status was clearly designated. Their destruction was observed, recorded, and dismissed as, what was the term? Collateral damage. Admiral Chen's gaze swept the chamber, settling on the Varnax and Drellic representatives. Both your governments concluded that no deliberate action was taken against our vessels. Both determined that no reparations were necessary. Both assumed that our silence indicated acceptance of these conclusions. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle over the assembly. You misunderstood our silence. It was not submission. It was deliberation. The hologram shifted to show the Ravian's call and its twin, revealing details that sensors had been unable to capture. The vessels were technological marvels, incorporating principles that many present recognized as theoretical but had believed impossible to implement. Humanity has never revealed its full capabilities. We have presented ourselves as traders and explorers because that is what we wish to be. We have maintained a modest defense force because we desired peace. We have engaged in diplomacy because we believed in the possibility of a civilized galaxy. The hologram expanded to show other human ships emerging from concealment throughout known space, vessels that had been hidden within asteroid fields, gas giants, and stellar coronas, maintaining silent vigil for decades. The destruction of the Artemis Dawn forced us to reconsider these positions. Our Security Council convened. A vote was taken. The decision was unanimous. Another change in the hologram, now showing the field of influence emanating from the Raven's kill, its effects analyzed in detail. What you are witnessing is not a weapon in the conventional sense. It is a fundamental reimagining of matter-energy relationships that allows for the selective nullification of specific technological principles. It cannot harm living beings. It cannot destroy worlds. It simply introduces technological humility. Throughout the chamber, representatives whispered among themselves, the implications becoming clear. The humans had not developed better weapons. They had transcended the concept of weaponry altogether. The field currently deployed around the Varnax and Drellic homeworlds will remain in place for 30 standard days. During this time, all military vessels in both fleets will be similarly affected. When the field dissipates, your technological capabilities will be restored. With certain limitations, your capacity to project force beyond your own systems will be moderated. The Varnax ambassador found his voice, though it trembled with suppressed rage. This is unprecedented. You have no right to impose such conditions. Admiral Chen regarded him dispassionately. Rights are preserved through mutual respect. You demonstrated none for our civilians. We are simply ensuring you understand the consequences of such disregard. She turned her attention back to the full assembly. Humanity has maintained technological reserves sufficient to impose similar limitations on any civilization that chooses military aggression as its primary means of interaction. We had hoped such measures would never be necessary. We were wrong. The hologram shifted one final time. displaying a new treaty document. The Artemis Protocols are hereby established. They outline principles for the peaceful resolution of disputes, proportional responses to aggression, and absolute protection of civilian vessels in transit. Signatories will enjoy full technological autonomy and human partnership. Non-signatories will find their military reach constrained. For several moments, silence reigned in the chamber. Then, one by one, representatives began to indicate their willingness to sign. First, the smaller powers who had long feared Varnak's and Trellic expansion. Then the middle powers who recognized the new reality. And finally, with obvious reluctance, the major civilizations who understood they had no alternative. The Varnak's and Trellic representatives were the last to agree, their postures radiating resentment and fear in equal measure. As the session concluded, Admiral Chen met privately with the Concorde's Secretary General, an ancient Meridian whose crystalline form had witnessed 3 centuries of galactic politics. "You have changed everything today," the Secretary General observed. "The balance of power, the foundations of diplomacy, perhaps even the course of galactic development." Chen looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's transparent dome. "We had no choice. The alternative was to accept that our people could be killed with impunity. No sovereign power can permit that and survive. And if another power develops similar technology, if your advantage is temporary." A small smile crossed Chen's face. "What makes you think this is our most advanced technology, Secretary General? What you saw today was measured, precise, and restrained. It was exactly what was needed. Nothing more, nothing less." She turned to leave, then paused at the threshold. "Humanity does not desire dominion. We desire peace, prosperity, and the freedom to explore the wonders of this universe. Today we demonstrated what happens when those desires are threatened. I pray the lesson never needs repeating." 1 year later, a monument was unveiled in orbit around the point where the Artemis Dawn had been destroyed. Simple in design, 7 pillars of light surrounding a sphere of polished obsidian, it bore a single inscription in every known language of the galaxy. "Remember the HFY of ERNC." In the decades that followed, no human vessel, military or civilian, was ever attacked again. The Raven's Cowl and its siblings returned to Earth, where they remained, visible reminders of humanity's resolve and capacity. And whenever conflict threatened to engulf innocent worlds, whenever aggression seemed poised to overcome diplomacy, the memory of those silent ships and their unspoken power gave aggressors pause. 1 human ship had entered orbit, and the galaxy had held its breath. It never forgot to again.